moment that people would be getting plenty of emails all day long. In between gifts, I'll be getting emails that say, what about cooking with Fan? So this is what you've been waiting for. I'm not going to hold you back. Tom Fan, master chef, master instructor. I'll try to help him if I can, but here he is live from Upper Stoneleigh, maybe. All right,
yeah,
Tom Fan.
Honestly, yeah. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for the introduction, and welcome to everybody who's joining us. I think Mr. Baker might have over-exaggerated a little bit. I don't know about Master Chef. I'm more of a guy who just likes to cook a little bit. So I want to save that title for real people who are professionals and stuff like that. But thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this, the one thing I hope you do remember is why we're doing this. This is all day holiday, and we're doing for the students at Calvert Hall, including my son, who's a junior in class of 2021. And I'll be making a contribution after that, after this whole cooking segment. I believe that we have a live question and answer portion, which will be helpful. So if you do have some questions, please send them along, and I'll do my best to answer them. And then I got two more bits of administrative things to deal with, and then I'll get to cooking. The first is my helper. Want to come over here? So Elizabeth Fan, Maryville class of 2024, she's going to be helping me taking care of some technology and then doing a little cooking herself and my sous chef. Do you have anything you want to say to people?
Hi.
She's very understated that way. And the other thing, since I think we're starting right on time here at 4 o'clock, maybe a couple minutes beforehand, in the spirit of all day holiday, I did want to issue a little challenge. So anybody who's contributing during this hour cooking episode, I think what we're going to do is the person who contributes the most or the largest contribution is going to get a chance where I can come to their house when this is all over, or do it at Calvert Hall, and I will cook a meal for you. Okay, it'll be, we'll work it out through communications, email, phone, etc. Figure out what you and your family like the best, and I'll do my best to put a menu together for you and then give you a little home cooked meal. Something that I think many people have been doing during this whole pandemic. Right. So feel free to contribute. That's what we're here about for all day holiday. All right. So let me start off telling you about what we're going to cook today, and hopefully you have the ingredient list with you, but I'm going to go through it real quick. The key thing about the ingredient list is just about every your pantry. There's nothing special. And with Chinese cooking, a lot of times, or actually Asian cooking, you can do a lot of substitutes. You can move stuff in and out because, we're just working with stuff that's sweet or things that are spicy, and you can substitute whether it be chili peppers, red pepper flakes, or brown sugar, honey, etc. Right? So the main course is going to be teriyaki salmon. Hopefully everyone can see that. I have 2 6-ounce fillets. They are cleaned. I washed them. I cleaned them. I pat them dry. I have a little salt and pepper on it, but you really don't need that. Salmon's really flavorful, so you don't need to do too much with it. I usually get the belly part of it, as they would call it. And by that, I mean it's a little fat in the middle. And the reason for that is because I'm going to pan fry it. You can do this recipe also in the oven or the grill, but I'm going to pan fry it, and I'm actually going to do it with the skin side up, and then I'll turn it to skin contact with the frying pan. I know there's different thoughts on that whole process, but that's just something I'm going to do today. Okay. I do have a teriyaki sauce. Elizabeth, can you reach into the refrigerator and grab? It's a blue container. Okay. I'm also going to show you how to mix one real quick. The teriyaki sauce is essentially a marinade, but you don't have to marinate the salmon in beforehand. It's entirely up to you if you want to. I did make a little bit and just had it chilling, but I'll show you the ingredients that go into that. Today we are also going to make, this was, believe it or not, one of my favorite dishes growing up because of my mother. We're going to make some garlic spicy string beans. For a person who did not like vegetables, this was a good, easy way for my mom to get me to eat vegetables. I happen to like garlic, always have, and I did like spicy food growing up. And that and a simple bowl of rice, a lot of times for high school, would hold me over for dinner, much different than it is now. And then the last thing we're going to do is a fried rice. And the reason I went with the fried rice is because, for lack of a better term, this is kind of the garbage can, if you want to say. I know it's not great to say that for cooking, in the sense that you can use day-old rice. In fact, it's probably better if you use older rice 1 or 2 days, but you could put anything you want in it, and the rice just works really well with it. I'm going to do a vegetable. So I have peppers, carrots, onions, let's see what else here. I'm gonna have some corn and peas in it, and then I'll mix a couple eggs too. Can you grab me 2 eggs and drop them in there? So yeah, just 2 eggs. And the thing with the rice is you can literally leave it out and let it dry. So I ain't gonna give you a cooking tip in a minute about the rice, but that's just the whole menu for today. And if you have questions, send them, and then I'll go through the ingredients. So, real quick about the rice. I used to get this question a lot in college, which is kind of weird. So when I was at Loyola University, every once in a while I cook meals for friends and stuff like that, and everyone wanted fried rice. I am going to be using low sodium or light soy sauce, which is obviously a little bit healthier, but you do use dark soy sauce mostly for coloring, and you won't use that much, so you don't have to use it for this recipe. I won't, but I've had friends ask about fried rice, and I would tell them, yeah, just leave it out. In fact, if you order Chinese takeout and you have white rice left over, open up the container and just leave it out. Put a paper towel over it and let it dry out. Dry rice works the best. For this one, I did make the rice a couple days in advance, and then I just literally left it out on in a container and just cover it. I used to have a lot of problems, and people would ask me about sticky rice. How do you stop your rice from becoming really sticky? So, if you're cooking rice, I think I talked about beforehand, you want to rinse it as best you can, get a little starch out. Just throw it in a bowl, like we did here, fill it with water, mix it around with your hands, etc., and it'll cloud up, and then drain the water out, okay? When you go cook it, whether you have a rice cooker or you're doing it in a pot, you put the rice in, obviously, and you go. If it's about a cup and a half of water. Usually the water covers just barely over the rice. I was taught, the hand method, which is you put your hand in the pot with the rice, and the water should just come right over it, and the rice is underneath, etc. And then when you're done cooking it, you leave it, it's cooking through, etc. And the process is finished. And you check the lid, and everything's good, and steam's coming up. You do a couple things at this point. There are some people who are saying, hey, poke holes in it, let it vent. You can do that. Big rice cookers, in the restaurants, they do that because they have a lot of rice and they need the rice to cook through. You don't have to do that, though. Some people say just put the lid on it, but the problem is moisture collects, and that's actually what makes the rice a little sticky. So if you go to a sushi restaurant, you will notice their rice cooker is always running. And if you ever notice when they pull the lid up to make the sushi, there's moisture on it. They want sticky rice because it binds better, okay? But one easy way out of it is to take a paper towel, put it over your uncovered rice, and then put your lid on it to tighten up. This way, all the moisture that comes out will be absorbed by the paper towel, and you should have pretty dry rice. If that doesn't work and you're leaving it out, rinse it with some water, take your hands and mash it up a little bit, and then just put it on a paper towel, depending on how much you make, and you can dry it out that way. I've heard people put it in the oven for a couple minutes, and that's fine. Low heat, maybe 250, 275, 10, 15 minutes, etc. For this recipe here, I actually don't mind the sticky rice because I'm going to char it a little bit, so there'll be a little bit of a crust there. Okay. There are a couple people chiming in. So hi to the Lucas family with Lucas Mitchell, or the Mitchell family, excuse me, and Josh Miller. How you doing? Okay, so hopefully other people from Calvert Hall are tuning in. And there you go. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So that's the basic idea there. So the first thing we're going to do is work on the salmon. While that's going, I'm actually going to show you how to make the teriyaki mix if you want to, and just go from there. Okay. So hopefully people will be able to see this a little bit. Let me get my pan going first. Yeah. Okay. Is it hard to see?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to do the mixture and then why don't you do the mixture? Okay. So we're gonna do a smaller portion. So we're gonna do a little count here. Okay.
Okay.
In a Chinese pantry.
Wait, am I making this?
Yeah. So this is pre-made, but we're just gonna make so we can show people. Okay. In a Chinese pantry, there are certain items that are absolutely necessary. So obviously, your soy sauce. Hopefully people can see that a little bit. Try to tilt it down a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah,
And
good.
then, is that good?
That's good now. Yeah.
Okay. Sesame oil. Sesame oil, it's really not a cooking oil. It's for Asian cooking. It's more for flavoring. And a little bit does go a lot of way. It's got a really nice nutty smell. You want some type of cooking wine. You can use a dry or sherry if you want. White wine works, but I try to avoid that. Rice wine vinegar, absolute necessity, okay? And then what's often called the Holy Trinity, for the non-religious Chinese people out there. But garlic, then green onions or scallions. With green onions and scallions, can you pull the one off the side there? I'm going to show you a little thing here about a good way to. So this is one. There's the long green part and the yellow, the whitish part. This white part is actually typically what you cook with, and the green part can be used as a garnish. So when you chop it up and mince it, or rough cut, this is what you usually throw on top for coloring and visual effect. And then the part that you're actually going to cook in the wok or skillet or whatever is going to be the bottom part. Typically, you strip it, and what happens is you cut off the ends, and then you pull off the whole thing. And what will happen, it will kind of reveal a longer white stalk, and that's the part you mince up. So there's a little tip there for that. Okay. All right, let me check my pan here. I feel like it's too hot. All right. I'm going to keep the fan off, the overhead fan, just because it won't be, this way it won't be too noisy. All right.
Is that another member of the family, the overhead fan?
Yeah, it's actually, honestly, in this household, it's probably the most important one, so we don't burn the place down. So we're going to put the little oil in there. Okay. And we're doing about a tablespoon of oil, just enough to coat it. Some people with salmon like to throw a little butter on there. That's fine, whatever you're comfortable with. But I'm going to let that heat up, okay? While that's going on, Elizabeth is going to start to make the sauce, okay? So you're going to put about a quarter cup here, okay? So you're going to count to about 3 on that. And then you're going to do the same thing with the cooking wine, about half of that, okay? A little bit.
Okay,
All
half
right.
of the bottle.
No. 4, 2.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 and 2, okay? And then really at this point, you just need a sweetener with it, okay? I'm using honey right here, okay? But you can use brown sugar. Some people use mirin. You can use different things, etc. And then you're going to put some garlic and ginger in. So I'm going to let Elizabeth take over and do that. I'm going to watch the pan and get the salmon going.
How much onion am I putting in?
Count to 4 for the soy sauce, and then do a pinch or so of the garlic and the
I
ginger.
know, how much of this am I doing?
Oh, that's like a like 2 count.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go from there. Yeah. So with the salmon, the reason I put it flesh side down is I'm going to sear it a little bit. So your pan needs to be pretty hot. Without temperature, it'd be great if it's like 400, but don't worry too much about it. Todd can get it. I do heat up the oil. I don't put cold oil into the pan. I like to let it heat up with the pan, etc. One question I did get is, I tried to follow the recipe or do whatever. I don't get exactly restaurant style. So go ahead and mix it. Okay. And the reason that is, did you put the sesame oil in already?
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I'll do that mix. Yeah. Is that in Chinese restaurants, you'll notice that they are cooking on open flame, and their temperature. Did you put this in already?
No, I was going to mix up the honey before.
They're cooking with temperatures as high as 500 degrees. Most kitchens, unless you have an industrial one, your burner's probably going to get to like 450, just short of 500, etc. So you just don't have that flame. And then, their woks that they're using are better conductive for it. So they're cooking very fast, very quick. They're searing the meat, taking it out. Most Chinese dishes will take, 5, 10 minutes max, depending. So if you notice that it seems like we take a little longer or things of that sort, that's exactly why. Okay. I take a whiff of it. Can you smell the sesame?
Yeah, you smell sesame.
Yeah. Did you put any ginger in?
No.
Can I take a pinch of ginger in there? Okay. Go ahead and mix that. Okay. And this is just a basic idea. Like I said, I don't usually do too many measurements, etc. I just kind of do it by feel, but most of the time I do it by smell. When I like, when it gets the nice sesame smell, and I can get the ginger and the garlic, that's when I feel pretty good about it. For me, yeah. Of course, we also taste it. That's not bad. That's good. Okay. We always like to add a little sweetener beyond the honey, etc. Okay, I can probably put a little bit more honey, a little aftertaste like that. And most of the time, I will zest an orange in there a little bit. Get a little orange zest, and a little more of that. That's good. Yeah. The more honey you use, the more of a glaze you'll get. And then I'll squeeze a little bit of orange juice in there. Oops, sorry. Okay. The other thing that we'll use on occasion is mirin. This is a Japanese sweet sake. It's great for cooking. It has a tremendous taste to it. It's kind of got a thicker viscosity into it, so it's glazed, etc. You will find this in just about every Japanese restaurant that there is. Right? So we're gonna put it on the side, okay? Through the magic of cooking live, Elizabeth has put together this teriyaki, okay? Sauce, good job. And when we flip our salmon and put it skin side down, we're gonna bring the camera over. We're gonna start to brush it a little bit, okay? So do you want to put the camera up over there?
Sure.
So I'm just looking to get a little bit of the salmon cooked through. It's kind of hard to see here, but you can kind of see like the edges are getting pink. I would not overcrowd the pan either. So, two, it's pretty good. If you're cooking for like a family of six, whatever, get a couple pans going in the picture. All right. So, yeah. So we got a nice little brownness there, okay? And you just saw how that salmon right there. Whoops. Ooh. Whoops. Oh, that was not good. There we go. There we go. Kind of crunched up a little bit, but you can see it's brown, nice and brown at the top, etc. And we got the oil going. At this point, normally, you want to start to put your teriyaki glaze on it. And we'll brush a little bit. Do not brush too much. And the reason is, if it drips through, it'll go to the pan. And then because it's got sugar in it, it'll start to caramelize. And the pan will start to brown a little bit. The easy solution to that is later on deglaze the pan. I'm going to actually turn my oven up a little bit to 375. And I'm going to finish off the salmon there and just get a nice little cook through. But you're just touching it up right now. No big deal. You can see right there, so I got a little liquid and it burned off right away. So hopefully that's helping out a little bit, okay? I don't know if we have any questions yet. So the other thing with the salmon, obviously, since I'm going to be putting it in the oven to kind of finish it, you want an oven-proof pan to throw in there, something that you can handle later on, etc. And you can see how it's cooking through a little bit. And you can probably see how it's opening up a little bit in the middle there. I still got a ways to cook through.
How high is that flame, Mr. Fan?
I'm sorry?
How high is that fan? That flame?
Height-wise, it's about 3 feet maybe. You're probably better with a little bit higher up and pull
your flame. Your flame. What kind of heat are you using on that? Heavy? You turned all the way up?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What's your heat on that? You've got that all turned all the way up?
Yeah. So I have my heat at I should have mentioned that. I'm at medium and high right now. I want the skin to kind of detach from it. The higher you cook the heat, sometimes the skin will come off the pan, and that's what you want. So you can kind of move it around a little bit. But like I said, I'm going to throw this in the oven. So eventually what's going to happen is the skin's going to completely detach and be left behind and stuff like that. And when I deglaze the pan, I can scrape off the skin a little bit, and I'll make a little glaze out of that and just throw it on there just for a little extra taste.
Nice.
So Yeah, we're looking pretty good here. That's going in the oven. Okay. I'm going to do this for about 6 to 8 minutes. Obviously, I'm going to go for a lower time because I want to undercook it so I can keep an eye on it. You can always cook up. You can't cook down. I think most people know that. But, you know, hey, it's the way to go. All right. So that's that. So the next thing we're going to do is the fried rice. Okay. And the fried rice we're going to actually do in my cast iron skillet. So now we're going to turn up high heat here. Okay. In this sense. If you want to make an investment for cooking, get yourself a good cast iron skillet. They basically does everything. It's very easy to clean. Take it camping, you can take it whatever. Great conductors of heat. And then if you're fortunate like me, my mother-in-law actually got me this, but she knows I like to cook, and I think she had a whole bunch of them that she's been giving to me passed down and stuff.
Nice.
So for this one here, okay, when we feel like the pan gets hot enough, can you get the canola oil and then get me the ginger? The garlic there, yeah. And then you want to mix the egg, beat the eggs for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Beat the eggs. Okay, you want to do pork? Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay. Once we get this hot enough, like I said, we're going to go with the Holy Trinity, which is going to be our green scallions, our green onions or scallions, our ginger that's been minced up. I just use a zester for it, and then garlic that's cut up a little bit here. Okay. I'm on medium to high heat right now. Okay. Most Asian cooking is going to be definitely done at a higher heat. That's part of what you're hoping for. So, like I said, some of the issues you have earlier with the stove might be a little bit of a problem. Got the egg going? Okay. All right, so we're going to have to turn on the fan again. And I'm going to put about a tablespoon or so of canola oil in there. Canola oil is better to cook with because olive oil has a lower smoking point. And what I was saying earlier about sesame oil. Nice. Thanks, Scott Brooks. I usually don't. You don't cook with sesame oil just because it costs a lot of money, and it's more of a flavoring thing, and it'll be very overpowering. Right, so I'm gonna let this go for a little bit. I'm looking for a little bit bubbles, and I'm really just hoping that the oil. I'll know it's ready, but it will run really easy on the top. What's wrong? All right, cool. Thank you. Yeah. At the same time I'm doing that, I'm actually going to cook the eggs here. Some people will tell you for fried rice to cook the egg in the same pan. I'm going to keep it separate just to make it easy. All I'm going to do is scramble some eggs, and when I put everything in together with it, that will be the last thing I'm going to add. So I'm going to cook them a little bit just to have it ready here. Scott Brooks, thank you for the comment. No Food Network debut. Strictly staying at Cabra Hall and trying to keep it easy this way. But Brooks, I'll tell you what. If you make a contribution, I'll come cook at your house. How about that? And then we can talk about the food debut.
That's nice.
All right. So here we go. Pan's got a decent heat on it. Some people talk about different spatulas. I like usually mostly a wooden paddle, and then I actually use spreaders and spatulas and stuff like that. But whatever's easiest. For the for the cast iron, I'm going to use a wooden paddle a little bit, and there is going to be a little sticking here, so we're going to have to kind of push it through. But we're going to put most of the green onions there, especially here cooked. Good amount of garlic. This is all depending on taste, how much you like. Okay, and then some ginger. Just give it a twirl. And you already start to smell the green onion. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit more. Hey, can you do me a favor? Yeah. Can you open up the can of corn and the tea? Yeah. So I did cut up some carrots and red peppers, etc., and then onions. Put the onions in front. Okay. Put the peppers in. Yeah, just drain. Okay, so put it in the green and green. And the carrots. But, I'm sorry? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but they're peas and carrots. Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Fan,
So this is drying up a little bit. I'll put a little oil in there. Yeah, Joe.
what is the what's the size on the cuts? Are you slicing and dicing the veggies or whatever? What are you doing there?
I'm dicing it, actually in a little bit when most of this is ready. I'll say, someone asked me once about that, like how I cut things a little bit. So I'll show you how I do that. But it's a rough cut. I didn't go to cooking school, so there is no French concern about making sure the cuts are precise and stuff. And honestly, like I feel like if you cut it differently, it gives a little bit more character to it. So some people are going to get bigger carrots and some are going to get smaller ones in that sense. We also did use, in this case, store-bought a can of corn and pea. Once it gets cooking a little bit, I'm going to turn down the heat just a touch, okay? And then there's my timer. Let me check my salmon now. My salmon still needs a little bit, but you can see it's got a nice brownness to it. So I'm going to leave it in there a little bit. I'm going to just touch it up with some teriyaki in a second here. I have to be a little careful now. Where's that teriyaki sauce? Oh, right here. Kind of brush that a little bit more and just keep adding it. So every time I check my salmon, I'm just adding a little bit more flavoring to it, etc.
This isn't opening.
Okay, I'll get it in a minute.
Watch out, it's a good piece of metal is sticking out there.
All right, you want to do the next one? Then why do that?
Yeah.
All right. Let's actually put a little water in here just to get a little fluffy. Yeah. So we're gonna put a little cold water in the eggs just to get a little bit of fluffiness. Okay. That's ready to go here. So go ahead. Okay. Drop it. Okay. For the interest of time, we'll just have to get the can of peas going, or can of corn here.
Can of corn.
Can of corn, nice and easy. Sorry. Drain the water out, throw it in there. Good. The water that was on the corn is going to help kind of deglaze the pan a little bit, so we don't have to worry about anything burning now, which is good. Got some pretty good colors there. There, can you mix that a little bit? Yeah, just start chopping up like it's like scramble. Okay, you want me to roll it around, you do whatever. Okay. Now, at this point, you have a couple schools of thought. Some people will tell you take the vegetables out and just do the rice. Try it. This pan's big enough that I'm just going to do everything at once. This is going to be a lot more of the vegetables than anything else. And then all you have to do at this point is really just mix everything. Keep mixing that. Okay. So I'm not going to put the whole thing of rice in here, but I'm going to put a good chunk of it. Okay. I promise you my hands are clean. How's the heat on that?
It's fine. It's really cooked.
All right, yeah, let it go. Okay, yeah, so turn it off.
It's already
Yeah. For the eggs, you don't have to cook them through. Since it's going to go in this pan and eventually start cooking it that way, you can actually undercook it a little bit. Okay. So right now, all I'm doing is just making sure everything gets mixed. Okay. I want my rice broken up as much as I can get it to break up. If you have sticky rice, it's going to be a little harder.
Man, one of our guests is asking about your thoughts mushrooms and fried rice. Do you like mushrooms and fried
I
rice?
do. I do like mushrooms. Unfortunately, my family's not really into fried mushrooms and fried rice. I can't do that. I actually also like bean sprouts, the mungo bean sprouts, which are really good, but you'll chop them up and you need to clean them. And then usually, actually, with fried rice, we take, like, if I grilled chicken beforehand, I have some leftover, I'll throw it in there. Maybe a steak, and I can cut it up and use that. So really, the fried rice is, we got stuff in the fridge, we got some vegetables. How are we cleaning this out a little bit? And we'll throw it in here and just do that. Of course, back in college, this was the midnight go-to snack, right? So everyone comes back and you're a little hungry. If you can clean out your fridge a little bit, this is what you do. Hopefully you don't cause any fires or anything like that. But the beautiful thing about rice, which you're going to see in a little bit, okay? And I've not put the soy sauce in or the sesame oil yet, so I'm just still mixing, okay? I actually like my fried rice with a little bit of a crust. So all that I'm going to do is actually leave it on this burner here, okay? And I have it at medium heat now, okay? And I'm just going to let it sit, and it's going to crust and burn the bottom a little bit, and I'll flip it over. So now I'll get a little crunch to the whole thing, okay? Really, Mark, well, people. Yeah, Mark, I got you. So salmon's starting to smell a little bit, which is good. We'll leave this here. And then the final thing we're going to do is we're going to do the string beans, okay? So for this, we're going to need a pan. Let's get a bowl for that, actually.
Okay.
Just grab it, something, put the eggs in. Okay. Do you want to mix this out a little bit?
Sure. Do we like scrub it and put it in the dry mat?
No, I'm going to need it for the fried rice. So, yeah, just rinse it out and scrub it for me.
Okay.
Cool. So this is the beautiful thing about having a daughter who's very helpful. So she's going to clean out that block there, okay? And I'm going to move this here. So this will be churn on this. And this way we can do the string beans right in front of everybody. You see the rice is still a little sticky, so it's sticking to the paddle. So we're going to let this go in its heat for a little bit and really dry out.
This is done. I need a towel.
There you go. Thank you. All right. Thoughts on rice with mushrooms? I think we answered that one. Stuff like that. Yeah, that is a classic fan, I guess, in that sense. Hey, nice. Okay, so it looks like Tom Ostrom says we're 75% gifts received. Nice. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you very much. So keep on contributing. Thank you for everyone who has already.
Oh, you're killing it, Mr. Fan. You're killing it.
So at this point with the rice, you can add your flavoring. For us, our flavoring is going to be pretty simple.
Wow.
I'm just going to put a little soy sauce. Usually I just squirt it right in there, but I want to give people an idea how much I'm going to do. Okay. So I'm going to put about a 4 count of soy sauce in here, which is about a 1/4 cup or so. I'm going to go about half of that in sesame oil. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little cooking wine, a little taste. And then I'm also going to add a little rice wine vinegar. You don't have to add these last two. It's really up to you how you want to do it, etc. But this is just for me to give a little bit more flavor and stuff like that. So the cool thing, like I was saying earlier about Chinese cooking or Asian cooking, you can kind of mix and match, okay? So you got your soy sauce and you have your sesame oil basic here, okay? Now at this point,
Yeah, I'm on live.
add stuff for more flavoring.
On my phone.
Want to hide everybody? So here is Andrew Fan, class of 2021.
Oh, Andrew.
Newest,
Mr. Baker?
hopefully
Hi,
AP
Andrew.
history scholar, Mr.
Hello.
Baker.
Oh, hey, Mr. Baker.
How you doing? When's the AP World Test, Mr. Fan? Do we have that yet?
Next Thursday. So
What I heard the new AP World Test. You have to know if you know 7 continents. That's a 5.
right, yeah. They definitely made some changes, but I got to give it to the sophomores who are taking the test this year. Ever since we went to online classes, they've been staying with it. About every week, I give them a DBQ quiz to do on it, and they've done it online. They're keeping in time with the 45 minutes, and then we actually did a simulated practice quiz test yesterday where they had to upload and everything like that, and they did a pretty good job. So if you guys are watching out there, well done. I think you guys are prepared. I know you're a little
they have a master
nervous,
teacher, right? They have a master teacher. So legendary Calvert Hall teacher Charlie Lepresto in grad is commenting on the quality of your presentation, that you're a master at instruction and cooking.
Fan.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that.
And Mr. Heydrich says you're also a good
Please
poker
tell Pat I
player.
said hello.
I'm a fan.
You hear that? Mr. Heydrich says you're a
Hey,
good
Doug, how you
poker
doing?
player. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I think last time I got a little lucky, so you know.
We're getting ready to push over 900 gifts.
Nice. So if Charlie could say hi to Pat Lepresto for me, he's a classmate of mine from Loyola in '94. So I'd like to say hi to them. All right. So our rice is actually pretty good right now. I'm going to save the green onions and the eggs at the very end to kind of plate and stuff like that. Now it's time for the string beans. Okay. So we're going to turn up the heat a little bit. I'm going to check my salmon just real quick, see how that's going. Okay. Yeah, my salmon's where I want it. I'm going to turn down the temperature on this, or turn it off and let it cool cook there. Okay. And we're going to do the string beans now. String beans.
Yeah.
Where are they?
I have no idea.
They're right here. Right behind you. Okay. So the string beans, we wash and cut them. We cut the ends off. Okay. If the salmon, I'll get to that in a second. Good question. If you go to any Chinese restaurant, so my dad owned a restaurant growing up, and unfortunately, I was forced into child labor at a very young
just
age.
like you do to us, huh?
Yeah.
There it is. Let's hear the real story for the fans. Let's get it out.
It's a good tradition to have as a family.
It's the new Calvert Hall series called Living with Fan.
But at 3:00, you know, when the lunch crowd dies down and you're waiting for the dinner crowd, you do all the miscellaneous work. And one of them was cutting, cleaning the string beans and snow peas, folding the napkins, making egg rolls and wontons. And it's just really, really, really tedious, unhappy work and stuff like that. So you sit at a table and they dump out a crate of like 20 pounds of string beans and you're just snapping off the ends. You have to put them in a big crate, wash them, and it was a pain in the butt. So as much as I like this dish, every time I have to do it, I'm just like, you know, a little bit bothered by that. So difficult memories from the childhood there. So I'm going to show you the salmon in a minute, okay? But I'm going to try to get a little. So you're hearing me talking earlier about cooking with a cast iron pan, why I like it. Here's the reason why. I can spread the rice out evenly, okay? And all the sides will get cooked, the bottom, the sides, everything. So I should get a nice crust out of that. Yeah. E, can you do me a favor? Can you get the computer over there real quick, or just hold it here for a second? I'm going to show the salmon. I just don't want it to get by the oven here.
I can't tell if they can. Oh, that's me.
Yeah. Okay. So here is my salmon. When I say it's like, so I got a little brownness there. Yeah. You can kind of see inside. It's cooked through, and if you can see the middle part of it, I'll pull that out later. It's got a nice little, just off pink coloring to it. So we're gonna turn up this heat as high as we can now. Really let the oil go. I'm gonna throw some jalapenos in mine, okay?
Yeah.
Because you could cook with, like I said, red pepper flakes. I have Chinese chili paste, etc. But I want some jalapenos just because we had some left over with it, so I'm going to cook with that. I'm also going to throw some onions and then ginger, and then of course the rest of the garlic in there. Okay. I have about a tablespoon of oil in here. It's moving really easily around the pan, so we're good. Okay, I'm going to give it another minute or so. Check the rice here. Go do this. All right, here we go. I'm gonna put a little salt on it. And you're almost gonna char and burn it. So I'm gonna let it sit. Hmm? Yeah, you can throw that in there. That's fine. Yeah. And just mix it hard. And then when we take the salmon out, we'll put that on there. I'm actually gonna put a little bit more oil in here. And then we're gonna talk a little bit about the secret ingredient for Chinese cooking at home. Okay. So you can see this is smoking. I'm waiting for my smoke alarm to go off because this is definitely at a higher heat. Okay. So I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. I'm gonna put the onions in. I'm gonna put my green jalapenos in. I'm gonna put the ginger on top and the garlic. Okay. Give me a little bit of water. You can get me a little cup of water. And this is about maybe a quarter cup or so. Just something to take the edge off a little bit. And now I'm gonna cover it just so it steams.
Nice. Fan Jeff Fulton, who's his favorite meal is peanut butter and jelly sandwich, said that he would eat this meal.
Thanks, Paul, and I appreciate it. Let's see here, yeah. I think some questions. How many portions to take raw fried rice? Vinny Baker, at least 4 or 5 portions, which fried rice is a high-calorie meal. Absolutely. Let's see here. Yeah. We'll have people trying to bust my chops a little bit here.
There's a commentary about you being a good referee.
Yeah, that's a long story from Loyola. Here, let me tell you something real quick here. Okay. So, you can grab the camera and put it right there. I'll get to that story in a minute because if I'm going to make fun of him, if he's going to make fun of me, I'll make fun of him a little bit. Okay. So, I was talking about charring the rice a little bit.
Can't tell that's good.
Yeah. You can kind of start to see the rice brown a little bit there, and there. And then you can just kind of mix it, move it a little bit. So what happens is that charring is kind of like what I like about it. So that's me. So everyone's got to deal with it, unfortunately. All right, you can put it back. Thanks. Oh, there we go. There's a nice one. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go.
So there's the green bean right there.
Throw it
It's
out.
literally about to catch fire.
So Elizabeth, the fire marshal, has recognized the green bean escape.
I'm honestly going to be throwing it off.
Turn that.
If the kitchen goes up, donations will go through the roof.
Yeah. And now the green beans are nice and green. Okay. I'm going to let the liquid cook off a little bit just to get back to dryness here. Okay. If you want to, you can throw a little bit of rice, cookie wine in there. I'll do a little bit of that just to deglaze a little bit. Can you get me some sugar? Yeah. And then I'm going to add a little sweetness, and then finally I'm going to add a little bit more heat. Okay. So at this point, you're just going to let it really sit down and just let the liquid cook off a little bit. Put a little bit of sugar in. That was about a teaspoon of sugar I put in. Okay. You want to mix the rice a little bit? It's going to be hard. Just try to pull it off the edges a little bit. Okay. You have to do it. Like I said, that's the charring aspect of it, which you like. Okay. And then you do kind of do this. No, it's not that. Just don't hold that. Now, I've been told by my family sometimes I like too much heat in my food, so we're just going to put a little bit of chili paste there.
That's enough.
Always add a little bit more. And then one thing we're going to add to the rice, which is a secret ingredient at home, it's called fish sauce. If you use it, it smells absolutely terrible, but it gives it a nice flavor. It really does. You just put a very little bit. So we're at the end of the fried rice cooking, so we're just going to kind of dash it in. And we're done there. We're going to start plating in a minute. Why don't you put everything over there? Okay. I'm going to warm up my teriyaki sauce just to keep the salmon nice and warm there. So I'll put that in a pot, throw that there, and turn it on medium heat. Okay, I'm letting everything go, and I think my green beans are done. You can grab the computer, put it over there. Put it on the thing.
Yeah,
Tilt down, there you go. Tilt down, there you go.
Looks
The
good.
first thing we got is our green beans. And of course, we got to do a little presentation now, so we got a little sesame on top of it. You can toast sesame seeds if you want to. I didn't. Yeah. I'm going to do the fried rice here. And I'll do the salmon last. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Here's our fried rice.
Yeah, yeah.
And then more color. Where is the? I don't know where they went. Okay. Well, we're supposed to have the green. Actually, you want to give me that green onion there? I'll chop that up. The one over the sink. Yeah.
I'm sure you didn't use it.
Yeah, I might have. I don't think I did. Grab that one. So I was talking earlier about cutting a green onion. And there's that. And then the final thing I'm going to do here, so everyone can see it a little bit, is the salmon.
Well, give me a second.
So I started cooking my teriyaki sauce and made it a little bit just kind of warm it up a little bit. Okay. What is the orange for? Good question. So the orange was something I zested into the teriyaki, so you can kind of see where it came off. And then when I made my teriyaki sauce, I did squeeze some in there. But to summer, a little citrus fruit will be nice. On occasion, I'll do a lemon on the green beans a little bit too, just to kind of change it up and give it a little bit of taste, etc. Pull the salmon out now. So, pan.
Mr. Fan, what's your address again?
8102 LaSalle Road, Baltimore, Maryland, 21286.
And does Fan Cooks have curbside delivery?
Not today.
Oh, bummer.
So here's our teriyaki salmon, and then the final thing we do is we had warmed this up a little bit. Get a spoon. And we're just going to drizzle. Maybe throw a couple pieces of ginger and garlic there, just to give it a little bit of that. If you were here, you would be able to smell the orange that the person was asking about earlier and stuff like that. And just to keep it a little bit more uniform. There we go. That's dinner.
Well done. Well done.
So,
bravo.
hopefully that helped a little bit. So I'll let the sous chef here try a little bit, and she'll let me know what I did wrong or what I need to work on here.
Oh, perfect.
She has to say that we got to take care of her next year for high school.
Nice. What?
And then,
Ha ha ha.
is it hot? Yeah. I'm going to answer some questions, but let's take a look at the salmon.
Metal
Salmon
retain
should
tea.
be,
Metal retain tea.
I don't know if you guys can see that a little bit. And like I said, I like my salmon with the skin on a little bit, but you can see how it's cooked through.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And then actually there's a little bit of the marinade that dripped through it, stuff like that. So you have that there. So that's that.
Not awful.
Not awful.
I
Thank
need
you.
soy sauce. Where's my soy sauce?
He likes soy sauce, unfortunately. And then we got the beans here. Hopefully,
Unfortunately.
good and spicy.
Yeah, I'm not trying.
So let me try to answer some questions here as Elizabeth and I munch down a little bit here. Fish sauce is the bomb. Yes, it's staple in Guam. Absolutely. We did orange. Okay. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions or anything we can help with.
Fan, talk about the crust. Mr. Fan, talk about the crust on the fried rice. I'm like, how do you know how much you get? Is it accidental? Do you not get it sometimes, or what's the deal on that?
It's both. So one of the stories that you'll hear a lot about in Chinese cooking is that there's a lot of happy accidents. Fried dumplings were done that way. You know, they were in a cast iron pan according to myth, and the chef to the emperor forgot about it, and they, kind of burnt, and then he had to make do with it, and it's now a Chinese staple. Fried rice is the same thing because you're taking day-old fried rice. So obviously, rice is a staple for Chinese diets, and you have a lot of it left over, so they needed to do something with it, so you threw it in a pan and let it go. As far as the crust, that's really up to you. In this mixture here, I probably have, let me have the spoon for a second, okay? About half of it is really crusted. That's going to be my half, which I like. And you can see how it is, and you can just break it up, etc. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Yep.
The half of it's crusted here. The other half, which is more my family, a little less crusted, etc. Okay, and go from there. There was a little bit too much moisture in there, so it was a little bit more stickier than I wanted. I probably should have put the rice in the oven for a little bit and dried it out that way, but overall, it'll be fine. As you see, Elizabeth is just having rice and soy sauce, okay, which is fine. we'll usually use chili paste or whatever, but it's really up to you. I just like it that way, and that's why I actually use a cast iron pan. Some people say, well, you have to do it in a wok. I really don't feel like that. The good thing if you do in the wok is that if you cook it fast enough, you'll have the rice will break up more. Something I did not do today is sometimes when I have day old rice and it's not breaking up, I'll throw it in a bowl of water, and then, like I said, I'll break it up with my hand and stuff like that, and then dry it out that way a little bit. Why don't you just get a bowl?
Because I don't want a bowl because I'm then not going to be hungry for actual dinner.
Yeah, there you go. Actual dinner. This is it. Sorry.
Well,
So, shh, quiet. Yeah, easy on the straw. Exactly. Okay. And the green beans, if you cut them up even smaller, they cook a little faster and stuff like that. I have a small small Teflon wok, which my wife got me. If you want to go crazy and want to get one of the industrial ones, made of carbon and stuff like that, and have the wok ring, and you can get your heat up to like 600-700 degrees, then by all means go ahead. But this is just like the way it is done at home. And that's why earlier I mentioned that I'm more of a functional chef. I just like to cook at home, and whatever we have left in the fridge, I'll kind of throw together. Let me do one thing here. Hold on a second here. So some people before had asked for some substitutes. Yeah. So let me talk substitutes here. Can you get me the sugar, please? Yeah. And so, and then I'll talk about cornstarch. Mm-hmm. So when you cook Chinese food, and you're usually doing some type of balance of sweetness and spiciness, I tend to prefer the spicy part of it. But the sweetness really could be anything. So if you have a recipe that says put a quarter spoon of, a tablespoon of sugar, that's fine. But don't be afraid to put an orange juice or zest in it. If you want like a little thicker and you want the kind of glaze, then use honey. And then you got Japanese mirin, which is a good substitute for all that stuff. But really anything sweet goes for it. Probably not chocolate. And then if you're doing spiciness, like I said, throw a chili pepper in there. Usually we have red chili peppers and they're dried out. I'll usually use those. Or I'll just use my chili paste, which is kind of a catch-all. If I wanted to make a quick chili paste, I actually heat up some soy sauce with wine, and I'll throw the peppers in there directly, and then I'll throw a little bit of sugar just to kind of edge it a little bit. And then as it thickens up and it kind of cooks down a little bit, it just goes right on there into the cooking. That takes a little bit more effort, but you don't need to do that. Some other things that you can substitute with, like I said, usually we cook with canola. Sesame oil is mostly for flavoring, so I would probably not cook with that. Chinese wine, which you can get at your grocery store, Giant, Fresh Market, etc., has it. But if you don't want to do this, if you have a dry sherry at home, that's pretty good to go with that there. And I'm trying to think. So one thing, I was talking to my sisters about this, and they said, make sure you talk to them about the cornstarch slurry. Yes. Okay. So in Chinese stir fry, the sauces are a big thing, right? And there's two schools of thought. There is do the marinade, especially if it's chicken or pork, which is, takes on the flavor of marinade really well. You should do the slurry first, which gives it kind of that restaurant quality look to it. And then there's some people like me who like to say, when you cook, you actually throw it in there. For the slurry, it's nothing more than cornstarch, not all-purpose flour, okay? Cornstarch, not cornmeal. And it's usually a 1-to-1 ratio with this and cold water. And you just mix it up, and then you add it. Some people marinate like I said, their beef or shrimp or chicken, whatever their protein is, at that time frame. And then they'll do the vegetable, or they'll do the Holy Trinity first, the garlic, the ginger, the scallions. Then they throw the meat in, and then they remove it all. And then they put the vegetables in that you're having with it. And then they put the meat back in, and then you don't have to worry about the sauce. Okay. I like to do it at the end just because I can monitor the sauce that way a little bit. I don't feel the need to coat the even pork or chicken, which are pretty much, they take on the flavor. I like, if I'm going to cook with steak tips, I like the steak to flavor through. If I'm cooking with the shrimp, I want the shrimp to go to flavor through and stuff like that. Cornstarch is pretty much flavorless, but I feel like it's a little less work that way in that sense. Okay?
Hi, Leo.
Yes, there's our dog there. So hopefully that answers some questions and gives some people some ideas. Mr. Baker, any questions or anything else before
No,
I
Mr.
can?
Fan, that was unbelievably good. I just want to point out that for the all-day holiday, we're now like I don't know, pushing close to 1,000 donors, and we've got over $200,000 raised. And during your time on, we got a boatload of gifts come in, and thank you for that. I mean, one thing about Calvert Hall is people pitch in. Appreciate you pitching in, helping out, and your daughter also. I don't know if poor Andrew was holding the oven up. I don't know where he was, but appreciate.
He was decompressing after his AP exam, and I just saw it looked like Bernie Pite of class of 79 work, so I'll have to work with him. Hopefully, I pronounced his last name right. But I want to say thank you to him and everybody else who tuned in. Your gifts obviously go to Calvert Hall, but for me, from a very tangible standpoint, my son is a junior there. Class of 2021. So his gift, the gifts that you give, continue to give the education that he really, really enjoyed, and one of the reasons why I like working for Calvert Hall. After this, I was going to do my donation and make it out to the class of 21. So, hopefully the rest of all day holiday will be as great as it has been, and continue to give these students at Calvert Hall the education that we all appreciate and love. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Fan. Just for people that are on the stream, 7 o'clock we have Mr. DeBricky reading a good night story for the. Sure, the fan kids will be on for that, and then
yes, go to bed early.
At 7:30 we have Marco Haig is a senior guitarist, and then 8 o'clock we have Tina Zeller, her mom, and her group playing from their patio, and 8:30 we have a great performance by 2006 grad Otto Gross, and then at 9 we've got Paul Malmstrom and his combo playing. It's an alum, so we got a lot left for the night. So stay tuned if you've been following Holiday. Mr. Fan, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but unfortunately for you, fortunately for us, you'll be back next year with Cooking with Fan. So thank you so much.
Next year we're going to do some grilling.
Oh my God, that'll be a sequel. We'll have to run 2 shows. So thank you so much. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Thank you, everybody at Calvert Hall. Enjoy your time and have a good weekend.
Awesome. Thank you.